As I stand here to give the closing presentation of the first ever iOSKonf Macedonia, I cannot help but feel a mix of emotions: nervousness, excitement, and gratitude. The past 2 days have been nothing short of being amazing, and I hope all of you here had an unforgettable experience. I know some of you might be eagerly anticipating the after party and the rakia, and I am too. But before we get there, I want to share some thoughts on a topic that has elevated my iOS career: personal branding. So hello everyone, my name is Rudrank, and today I want to take you all on a journey of me sharing my knowledge online, putting myself out there, going to meetups and conferences, and getting opportunities that I never thought were possible. Starting with a brief introduction about myself, I have been doing Apple platforms for the past 6 years. I started with iOS, then moved on to watchOS projects, then macOS at Apple working on voice control. Then I did iPad OS and tvOS consulting, and then finally exploring Vision OS. I have written hundreds of articles on my blog and almost 100 more paid technical articles. And I have authored 4 books and working on many this year. I've spoken at 4 conferences, and this is my 5th in a year. I don't know how, but somehow. And a dozen of meetups. And I'm proud to be a WWDC scholarship winner. The motivation for this talk is something I wish I had when I started my iOS career, or even a few years down the line. Because I think the opportunities or the mentorship that I could have gotten that time would have led me to be having a better career in the early stages itself. And personal branding does not have to be as complicated as it sounds. When you are an iOS developer, you may have heard the infamous quote by Steve Jobs, which is something along the lines: you cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward. Now that I am further along in my iOS journey, I can see all the little decisions and actions I made over the past several years led to where I am today. I divided the talk into 4 eras. When I was presenting to a friend, she was like, "Did you take inspiration from Taylor Swift?" And I'm like, "I did not." The eras are connecting the dots backwards, and this encompasses my personal journey, while I share practical examples and learnings about personal branding. So let's travel back in time in 2017, connecting the dots from there, the accidental era. I got a shiny new MacBook Air in my freshman college year, and I was so excited about it. However, my classmates thought that it was useless because they all had Windows machine, and they said that you cannot play games on it. I wanted to do something that their machines could not, and that's how I stumbled upon iOS development. I found a Udemy course that was by Angela Yu, and it was easy to follow with. It was beginner friendly and got me hooked into writing simple and clean Swift. I did not own an iPhone at that time, but I had an iPod Touch to try out the sample apps, and I would code during my classes and after classes, and everyone around me got to know me as someone who was developing for iPhone. And then suddenly, I became the iOS guy in my college because nobody else was developing for the iPhone. That bit of knowledge was about to become my first accidental personal branding win due to word of mouth. A senior of mine in my college wanted to have an iOS app for the Android counterpart, and the recommendation that my classmates gave them was me. I got the internship, and then I created 2 apps for them and learned a lot in the process. But at the back of my mind, I was thinking, if a little bit of knowledge and can make this much difference for a college kid, what kind of opportunities could I create if I got serious about iOS development? That's when I decided to go all into my learning. The next few years turned out to be the turning point of my life as well as in my career. In one of the student groups, I randomly saw about an online meetup about scholarship and summer programs. I was like, I should join it. What's the harm? I will learn something new. From that, I got to know about a summer program called as the Google Summer of Code, and where you work on an open source project and with an open source organization. And I also got to know about Apple WWDC Scholarship, where you create an app, and if you win, Apple flies you over to San Jose and also provides accommodation. From that group, I met Shinchan, who was a scholar a year before me, and he helped me with all my queries and my doubts about the scholarship. I went all in on my project, and I created a 3D and AR game for children with autism, which was inspired by my mother, in 10 days. Fortunately, I won the scholarship and then flew to San Jose to attend the conference. At that time, everyone was posting about this meal on social media, so I decided to do it as well to combat the fear of missing out. And because everyone was posting about being at WWDC, I did it too, because some attention and validation doesn't hurt, right? You can see I was literally posting anything and everything about DubDub. When I look back, one funny thing and a major mistake I made when it came to networking and meeting new people was that I was just going around and handing them this card. I would go to someone, have a small talk with them, and then move to the next person to hand them the new shiny card. Giving business cards felt like I was doing personal branding right, but when I look back now, having 1 or 2 meaningful connections is infinitely more valuable. So after I came back, I realized I wanted to socialize with more people, form genuine connections, and get to know them better. I bought a ticket to Swift India conference and networked with only a dozen of people, got to know them better, followed them on socials, and it was much more fun than just handing shiny cards. I also started looking for meetups in my city, and I attended Swift Delhi, where I was one of the few college students. When I was sitting in the audience, I would go and look at the speaker and like, wow, it must be so fun to share your knowledge and have so many people patiently looking at you and want to listen to you. What would happen next is what I did not anticipate. Because I was wearing the WWDC scholarship scholar t-shirt, everyone was excited to know more about my journey, because going to WW is one of the dreams of us as an iOS developer. So when the meeting ended, the organizer gathered a bunch of people and asked me to share my journey. I was scared. I was hesitant. But I shared anyway. And as you can see from the picture, I was sweating like anything. But I enjoyed the experience a lot. I filled the call for paper for the next meetup and gave a full 45 minutes talk on VoiceOver, which was my Google Summer of Code project. And damn, I look so different with a man bun. After that, I started going to each one of them. I gave talks on topics like voice control and dynamic type, and making friends that I'm still in contact with and hang out with. I'm going to one's engagement next month. This is something I would encourage you to do as well. I think a lot of you here are from Macedonia, so you can attend Cocoheads MK, which happens the 3rd of third week of every Thursday, something like that. So you can attend as an attendee or as a speaker. Sharing knowledge is fun. And if you have an aim to be a conference speaker, you can record your video there and have it as a proof that you can speak well. If you want to make friends from all around the world, I recommend you joining iOS Dev Happy Hour, which happens online on a Zoom meeting every month. And there are like 150 to 200 attendees. There's happening one, I think, next Saturday as well. So coming back to my journey, I continued working on Swift UI projects. And one day I saw someone from Apple hiring accessibility engineers on Twitter. I took my shot. I just DM'd them to ask if they were also hiring interns. Surprisingly, they were. And based on my resume, which had a lot of accessibility projects, they referred me. And I got an interview in a few months. Instead of the usual lead code questions, I was grilled on voice control. But because I had researched so much about voice control when I was giving a talk at my city's meetup, I was able to easily clear the interview and ended up interning with the voice control team. This is what I love about the power of sharing knowledge. I just did not know how that it will turn out like this, but the knowledge that I gathered to share it with others ended up helping me in a way that I never imagined. As the saying goes, the best way to learn something is to teach it. When you share your knowledge, you're not only helping others, but also reinforcing your skills and your expertise. I realized that my strength is writing, but you choose whatever medium suits you. You can write blog posts, you can create tutorials on YouTube, share code snippets on social media, or speak at meetups and conferences. The key is to start small and consistently put yourself out there. Also, it's a long-term game. You cannot change the direction of a large ship quickly. It takes a lot of little steps over time. You choose a platform and medium that fits your style. I chose Twitter because it's just 280 characters, or just an image, instead of doing videos because I was not comfortable with my spoken English. I understand there are time constraints to writing a full-fledged blog post or an in-depth YouTube video. After college, I would work on my app. Then during my metro commute home, I would tweet about what I learned, maybe share a code snippet. I do not have a picture of me tweeting in the metro, so here's one of the random stations in my city. But I did it consistently. I would set aside a slightly longer session a week, maybe a few hours on a Saturday or Sunday morning. I found that it was my sweet spot. I used that time to batch create tweets and blog outlines, and then I would work on that over the next few weeks or the next few months. That meant sacrificing a bit of my weekend relaxation, but I saw it as an investment in my career. And it wasn't as all rosy as I expected it to be. I had my fair share of breakdowns on socials, which I think is important to mention. I think everyone has these moments of doubts. Even the developers that you admire online, I assume they have been all there. The key is not to let the negativity win. And as you can see from my friend Adrian, the best part was the friends I made along the way who supported me no matter where I was in my journey. And that made a lot of difference. The next few years were about understanding the need for personal branding, which I call the standing out era. I had solved a lot of problems on lead code, and I did not like that at all. Lele. I also had a repository where I would share all my solutions, but I could felt I used my time to build instead. So I wanted a career where I did not have to interview with this lead code kind of questions. And one of the ways I thought was going all in on freelancing. One of my friends got reached out for a Swift UI project on a text messaging app. And at that time, he was doing mostly UI kit. But because he had seen me tweet so much about Swift UI and my open source project, as well as that I was open for part-time contracting, he referred me. And that person reached out to me. I liked their product, and it was all Swift UI, and this is back in 2021, where getting a Swift UI project was a dream. We had a call, we discussed the compensation, and the work hours as a contractor, and that's how I got my first freelancing project. I decided to give up on the full-time offer I had from the startup I was working on, and risked my career straight out of college to go do freelance. I started searching for freelance work, but saw websites like Fiverr and Upwork too crowded. So I thought the only way I can stand out from the crowd was to make a name for myself, aka personal branding. I already had some audience on Twitter, so I started searching for freelance gigs on Twitter instead. I would go to the search bar and type looking for iOS, and I knew that this was kind of a template that others were using as well. I found a few. I would cold DM them with my projects and got the conversation started without any expectations. I was lucky enough that the first few that I messaged, I was able to convince them with my portfolio of apps and the knowledge that I had shared on socials. On the other hand, I started writing and sharing more. At that time, I was working on widgets, and I did not find any information related to accessibility for widgets. So I started exploring and experimenting with voiceover, voice control, and dynamic type on widgets, and I condensed them and summarized all my experimentation into one big article. The article was well received in the iOS community, and a few months later, I got a mail from a technical writing manager that they read that article and they would want me to write for them. It was so amusing because I was already writing all these articles for free, and now I get paid to write the same articles related to Swift and Swift UI. It felt like a dream. I wrote one on Swift UI grid layout, and it was the start of my writing career. Just after I posted, I got a message from another startup, and over the next few months, it kind of became a chain reaction where I would post a blog post and receive some more opportunities to write more. I took up more freelance work from Twitter and LinkedIn, and I was learning so much from them that I was writing maybe a blog post a day. I could feel myself being a little known in the iOS community when my articles would be featured in different newsletters in every month. And with every post that I shared, I would make new friends and get to know more people. This was a lesson for me that this was the power of social media, which I did not imagine before. I realized the best possible way to market myself and create a brand was to add value to others people's life. In our case, it is providing value related to iOS development and other Apple platforms development. So personal branding for me simplified into 4 things. Be myself, where I share stuff I found interesting, the way I solve problems related to Swift, Swift UI and UI kit, and maybe a little bit of criticizing Apple. I felt that's what made me unique. Show my work, no matter how small. I would tweet about my progress, put my side projects up, share the code snippets. It was a proof of what I can do and my thought process as a developer. And I would want to bring others along, share my failure moments and my aha moments. I feel that's how we build this amazing iOS community and grow together. And finally, it was the freedom of work where I could choose the projects that I wanted to work on and the time that I wanted to invest in them. I kind of got a gist of how personal branding or marketing yourself worked. I still believed in being myself, but I wanted to be consistent across my socials. One thing I thought was that I wanted to do was creating an identical persona. So if you find me on GitHub through my code, and then you find me on Twitter, I wanted to be recognized instantly. When you look at my Twitter, it is my full name and my username, which used to be Snuff 4 because I love the song Snuff by Slipknot. And my bio is something of who I am and what I do. So I am a developer developing for Apple platforms. I am a technical writer and an author and a conference speaker. And I found that the scholarship community is so well connected. Like when you see a scholar and that who gets to know that I'm a scholar as well, we became instant friends. So I wanted to mention it everywhere as well. For my LinkedIn, I use my same profile picture, banner, and bio. My GitHub has the same information, but I made an About Me page that has more information for future clients so that they can understand my strengths and expertise. And finally, I do not use Mastodon much, but I still keep it up to date. And when I tweet too much, I want this is how the people should feel, that everywhere they go, they should see my face. One of the developers that I look up to is Anton, and you may have read his blog posts on evanderly.com. I think he has done his personal branding right, and we all can take inspiration from him. He has a call to action to follow for Swift, iOS, and Xcode related content, and he has a selling point that the app that he's working on helps you build your apps faster. His LinkedIn tells more about his profession, while he has a banner that shows him giving a talk. His GitHub shows his open source work. And finally, when you stumble upon his website, you can see the similar orange branding and the same picture that instantly makes you recognize that, oh, that's Swiftly. After setting up the foundation of personal branding, I continued with my work, but this time it was time to reap some unexpected rewards. To give you context about what it will be about, I spend a good amount of my time on Apple Music and Spotify listening to music. I am passionate about music, and it was a dream to work on a music app. I had worked on a technical article to create a music chat app using Swift UI, but at that time, working with Apple Music APIs was a pain. In the same year, Apple released Music Kit, which simplified working with Apple Music API, and it was created with Swift UI and Swift concurrency in mind. I just loved it at that time, but it was a new framework, so nobody wrote about it. So what I did was I gathered all my knowledge and I wrote a lot of blog posts around it and also a book related to it. Surprisingly, because I put myself out there so much, I got reached out by Apple to interview for the Music Kit team. I wasn't sure that I wanted to relocate to Cupertino, so I had to let go of that opportunity, but I continued working as an independent developer working with Music Kit. I created a framework called as Musadora Kit, which started as a wrapper around Music Kit, and now it is much more powerful than Music Kit itself. I open sourced it for people to use and have been working on it for the past 2 years. Initially, people were not using it much, but then they slowly started exploring it. I was happy at what I worked on in my free time was providing value to others. But here's the unexpected reward. Someone who was using Musadora Kit in their app reached out to me to hire me to work on their music app. This was a dream gig for me because it is a social music app. I can discover new music and find new friends there. It's a part-time role and a remote job which is fully async, so I can also focus on the technical writing part. I marketed my skills online about knowing music kit, from creating blog posts to Twitter code snippets to sample projects or even a few YouTube videos, which finally led to where I wanted to be. What I learned from this experience, and this is my opinion, is that you do not have to be good at everything iOS to stand out. Pick something or one framework that lights you up and you can talk about it for hours and hours. Maybe it is about performance, maybe it is about animation, maybe it is about creating Swift packages, and become the go-to person for that. Another thing I want to mention, which was completely unexpected, was remember how I made friends back in 2019 at the Swift India conference? I kept in touch with them over the years and they had been following me on socials. Last year, one of my friends reached out to me about a project that they were confident that I would pull it off. And then I worked on a spatial audio project for 4 months with Apple. And this project was showcased at Apple Mumbai's store in India last month. And this project is definitely a career highlight for me. And I don't think that would have been possible if I did not put myself out there. My unexpected learnings are that personal branding is not about getting something from every interaction. You just have to be helpful, curious, and supportive of others, and you cannot predict the ripple effect that it can create. I do not see it as something that I have to do extra from my day-to-day life. And do not underestimate the power of the friends that you make at the iOS conferences like iOSKonf and meetups like Cocoheads MK. So completing the quote from Steve Jobs, you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. I can look at all the dots I made and how they connected together now. And with that, it is your turn. Think about one problem that you have solved while coding recently, no matter how small. Turn that solution into a shareable format, micro blog post, code snippet, Twitter thread by the end of this week or a month. One thing I love about a friend who has a debugging diary where she would mention all the thought process she has at work, and I have been encouraging her to create those into blog posts. Here's another step for you today. Have a picture of this conference or some slides that resonated with you or inspired you or even a new friend that you made here. Tag hashtag iOSKonf and post it on the platform of your choice. X, formerly Twitter, LinkedIn, Mastodon, or even Facebook. And feel free to tag me at Rudrank Riyam. I cannot wait to see what you share. For example, yesterday I shared that I learned more context type options in the text field in his talk, and that got my friend to know more about it as well. And today, I thought metal was scary, so I never touched it. After Veronica's talk, I learned about the new visual effect modifier and how easy it is to work with it in SwiftUI. But I still do not know where to use it, and someone in my commented that they have seen a practical use case. And with that, I think it's all about growing your knowledge, growing with your friends, and sharing knowledge. And I conclude my talk. Thank you and Nazdravya.